I got somebody with me who is a bit of a triple threat. You know what I'm saying? And I'm
He hyping me up over here. I'm getting hype over here.
I'm about to mention these things that make you a triple threat, and that makes her unique. I met you back on the campus of University of Michigan. You were a freshman. What year did you enter Michigan?
05. I was a freshman.
Okay, and I think I might
No,
have.
yeah, I was a freshman. It was toward the end of my freshman year.
Okay, got you. Towards the end of your freshman year, so that was like towards the end of my junior year,
Yep.
I believe. Okay, so I met her on campus. So first off, she was studying to be a chemical engineer, and not many black women in general, was trying to enter that field, right? So that was one thing that intrigued me, and that also made her a triple threat. There's two more things, right? The other thing is that she was a cheerleader at the D1 level. Can you remember the time where because I didn't believe it. I looked at you. I'm like, ain't no way you can flip. Because you seem like a nice, prissy. You get what I'm trying to say? You get what I'm saying,
No,
right?
I get it. People underestimate me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't think that you had that capability. I doubted you a little bit. And I said, you know what? If you really can flip, show me something. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And right there on campus, bunch of people around, students walking, this, that, and the third. You did it. You did like 5 backflip. Like I think there's some no hands, right?
Yeah. It's called a back tuck.
It's called a back tuck, right?
Yeah,
and there was this other tuck you did where you was kind of like you was spinning. Kinda. What is that called?
A full? I don't think I did a full. I don't know.
No, it was like a half maybe.
Oh yeah, I might have done a half. I might have did that. That was my thing back then.
I think so. And you didn't even break a sweat. She wasn't even breathing. She wasn't even breathing hard afterwards, right?
Nah. You asked me to do that now. Well, I might be
still
breathing
can
hard.
She said, don't let her fool
I
y'all.
can stumble a little bit. I'm not as good as I was in my prime. Not as good.
She's being modest, man. Okay,
not as good.
So the third thing that made her a triple threat was on college campus. People were, there was a lot of hedonism going on, I guess,
Heathenism.
No, did I say, you said heathen?
You said heathen.
Okay, same thing. I said hedonism. So it's like similar, very similar, where you didn't hear a lot of young people professing their devotion to following Jesus Christ, and she was very, very vocal about that.
I was.
That's what made her very, very unique. And you know what question I'm getting ready to ask next, right? So right? You can imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, because back when I was coming up, I knew a couple of children of some pastors and this, that, and the third.
I know. We don't have a good rep. It's fine. It's fine. You could be real. You can tell the truth. We don't have a good rep. Every time I tell somebody that my dad's a pastor, they like, what? Like your dad's I know what you like. No, you don't.
Is the stereotype true?
The stereotype is not true.
Not with respect to you. Not with
respect to me, but there are some preachers' kids that are out there for sure.
Yeah.
Or that were out there. Maybe they're not out there now.
Because those were a lot of your peers, I'm sure, growing up, right?
Yeah. And you'd be surprised some of the stuff that they was doing. I'm like, wait a minute. We know better.
Yeah.
Like we know better, but just because you know better don't mean you do better.
Wow. No, you're right.
You're right. Better.
So do you think possibly, well, let me ask you, how was it growing up being the daughter of a pastor?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like I didn't feel any different from like being in a normal family, to be honest with you. Only difference was that like my family, my dad and my mom would shield us from different things. So it's like some people might have thought like, oh man, you guys are sheltered in a bubble. To me, it was like normal life. And like later on, you come to find out why your parents do certain things, right? And it's not just when you have kids you find out. You start finding out like little things about like your parents' life growing up that make them the way that they are.
Wait, so you saying that based on their past experiences, they're sort of projecting that onto you, and sometimes it's for the good, and sometimes it can be for the worse, right?
It can be.
But I guess in your case, it was for the good. Look how you turned out.
I know. That's what I said. So, and later on in life, it started to come out a little bit more, like why my parents did the things that they did, and then it kind of came out like as I became an adult and like got married and stuff like that, it started to come out even more. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What? I know, because then you start to see those things inside of you, right? And you start to wonder like, wait a minute, why was I this way? Or why am I being this way? Or you kind of start to self-reflect a little bit more. Like, it's like coming to almost. It's like, wait a minute, it's the awakening. Like, wait a minute, why am I doing this?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, and it can be because of those projections from your parents and like previous experiences that they had that they projected on you. And you're like, why do I even have that thought?
I got you. So okay, you graduate from college in 2000,
Yeah,
10 or 9?
That's a funny story. Okay, so I walked in 2009, and the only reason why I walked is because President Obama was going to be speaking at the graduation, and I did not want to miss it. I was actually doing a co-op. So actually, yeah, 2009, I walked. I think he was there 2009 or 2010. But I walked in the spring, and then I didn't even get my degree until, like, it didn't get mailed to me till 2012.
Wow. Okay, I got you.
Long story.
So you were a cheerleader the whole time you were there?
No, I wasn't a cheerleader my freshman year.
Wait, you tried out and became a cheerleader?
I had to, yeah.
That's even hard. Oh my God.
No, I had to because so I tried out right coming from high school into college, and I didn't make it, and I was mad. Like, I was real mad. Like, when I say I was mad, like, a girl was big mad. And I'm like, oh man, I know I'm good enough to be on this team. I'm like, for sure the coach doesn't like me. Yeah. She hates me. Wow. She hates me. That's why I didn't do it. That's why I didn't make it.
That got to be the only reason why they didn't pick me. Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was more to it than that. And like, there were some certain things that I didn't have because growing up in the inner city cheering, like, we didn't have stunting and like experience partner stunting with guys and stuff like that. So like, I came in without that experience, and I didn't know. You just don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So then like, that kind of put me back a little bit in my first tryout. And so I went the whole year sitting on my tush. And then at the very like end of the year, I'm like, oh, I need to get in shape. And I was like, so I had to train to get in shape. So there were 2 black guys on Michigan's cheer team at the time. It was James. I remember James and Tristan. James and Tristan. And James and Tristan was like, you're gonna make Michigan's cheer team. She actually told me to come find you on campus. And she being Pam St. John, who's the coach at the University of Michigan, she told me to come find you, and I'm gonna whip you into shape. Wow. And he didn't lie. When I tell you I couldn't move my whole body, he was training me. He was working tucks with me. They were taking me to, what is the gym called on campus? The CCRB?
CCRB. I said
is it CCRB?
I'm thinking about engineering.
Like, Central Record, I don't know.
CCRB, I think. You're right.
CCRB.
But it's on Central Campus because they got another gym on North Campus and all of that. You're right. CCRB.
Yeah.
And if we're wrong, one of these Michigan people out here, if they change their acronym since we've been there, because I've been there ages ago, they'll correct us. But CCRB, they were training you there.
Yes. He was coming in. He was training me. Like, when I tell you, my body never hurt so bad. And so then in the tryout, I was so nervous. And my arch nemesis was like the standing tuck. And so when I went to go do that standing tuck, it was like, I prayed to God I was going to land.
Okay,
because everyone...
What happened? What happened?
I was falling. I kept falling and falling and falling. I kept opening up too early. I kept putting my hands down.
What is the standing tuck for those who don't know?
It's like a no-hand backflip. Okay. So for those of you, like, in short, it's a no-hand backflip. And so I went up, and I would go up, and I would stop rotating midair, and I would come down on my hands. I would come down on my knees. I would come down. And so I just kept doing it. And I'm like, oh man, my core strength was it was trash until I got it, until I kept training to get it better.
Wow. And you finally made the team.
When I tell you in that tryout and I landed that tuck,
that's like the deciding factor on whether or not you're gonna get in.
It really is.
So everything you could have done before that,
no, you didn't do that standing tuck.
If you don't do that, you ain't getting in.
I know, because okay, so the team makes a touchdown. They're like, whoa, they made a touchdown. Yeah. And then it's time for everybody, all the cheerleaders line up, and they do a standing tuck for every touchdown you have. You ain't got no tuck. You ain't tucking at the end of that. It was terrible. But yeah, so they trained me. They whipped me into shape. I tried out the end of my freshman year, and I made the team. And that was a tough year for me.
Wow.
It was tough.
I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, because I vaguely remember you being sore a lot.
I was sore.
Yeah.
But not only that, the cheerleader, so the 2 black guys that got me on that coached me onto the team, right? It was their senior year, so they were leaving. So then when I came on, I was the only black person.
Whoa.
And so that really did something to me.
Yeah.
it really did something to me. It was like, man.
What was that like, I guess, being the only person? Because
I think it was discouraging. It was really discouraging. Because I felt behind. One, because I told you, like, I didn't get all of the training that they got, right? And then I had to train myself back to the point that I was.
Well, a lot of those people are maybe recruited, right?
Yeah,
and
we're all recruited. No, they don't have guaranteed spots. We all got to try out.
Oh, everybody has to try out.
Nobody's spot is guaranteed.
Nobody's safe. I got you.
No, okay, nobody's safe. Every year you must try out.
Yeah.
So I tried out. I mean, so I made the team, but I felt like it's almost like, you know how you go into Michigan and you do engineering?
Yeah.
And like you black, right?
Yeah.
So then you started in Detroit public schools and you like, oh yeah, I'm going. You was the smartest at the Detroit public schools. You like, I'm good.
When I got to Michigan, it was like, wait, what? Y'all done seen this stuff
before? You done seen this before. Oh, you know how to take this math test? Oh,
wait, you took Calc 2 in high school? Wait, hold on, wait.
I took Calc.
I'm talking about these people that I was encountering.
You like, wait a minute. So you didn't fail this first time? Like,
yeah.
Like, I failed. Like, this is not. So it was like a combination of feeling like, one, I didn't have all the skills in stunting wise, and I had to learn that, with the combination to learning engineering. And, engineering, it's not for the weak. It ain't for the weak at Michigan.
It's not at all. It's not at all. Especially if you come in and you're not where everyone else is.
Right. And did you do engineering bridge?
I did not. Well, I did bridge.
Okay.
Not engineering bridge. That's a different type of bridge, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't get into the school of engineering until the junior year. I had to actually take those prereqs, and you got to get like a certain GPA with those prereqs. You came into the school of engineering, right? So how was the bridge engineering?
So
it was a wake up call. It was like, hold on, wait.
It was a wake up call. Listen, we all came in and we felt like we was below. Like we felt like, wait a minute. We all came in and we felt like we were one step behind everybody else. And so it's like you're coming in and they're trying to get you up to speed. Mind you, we was the last engineering bridge class. Wow. They ain't do no more after us.
That was it.
They was like, y'all know what? Y'all suck so bad. No. Y'all was so trash. Yeah. Like, but it was really difficult for us. It was really difficult.
So this experiment has gone wrong.
It was. But that's how they treated us in real life. Like, they met with us constantly. But it really did forge a community between us. And like some of my best friends I met in engineering bridge. The problem was that we still came in and we're trying to bridge that gap. And it's large, like in engineering.
Well, that's the reason why most people that you probably, saw in engineering bridge, they either didn't make it out the school of engineering. They had to switch majors to something easier.
A lot of us switched majors.
Out, whatever the case may be.
They flunked out. They was like, you know what, this ain't for me. It's not like they switched to another engineering. Yeah. They was like, oh, I'm out. Like, I'm done. Or they quit school altogether. They dropped out. We had a few people drop out.
Yeah.
Like, they was like, it's definitely not for the weak. It wasn't.
Yeah, well, and that's why it's almost like, and just playing devil's advocate, when you did say just a second ago, was the experiment even worth it? Like, there's some legitimacy to that argument because, if not many people make it out of there, very few did, like me and you.
Yeah.
But you do have to question that. Either way, I'm glad that they had the experiment
No.
for my sake at that time. But
absolutely. Because what happens is that, so in engineering bridge, there were so many things that were so valuable. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it was more so mindset driven, right? It's like, hey, we're going to teach you how to set goals. We're going to teach you how to study.
That's what they was doing it. Wait, in engineering bridge they did? My bridge was
and then they taught us how to write a resume. They did resume critiquing. They taught us what resources we had available to us. They forced us kind of into those resources, not as much as they did in regular bridge though.
No.
So in regular bridge, they force you into those classes. In engineering bridge, they gave you options. And then after they gave you the options, when we all failed our first math test, and I'm saying, it wasn't everybody. It wasn't everybody. But I would say, okay, so me and my best friend, so she's my best friend, her name is Ashley Jones, right? Ashley Jones played basketball at Michigan. Mm-hmm. And so she was an athlete. So, I mean, a D1 athlete, play basketball, and they travel and it's high demand.
Yeah.
Her coaches gave her such a hard time for choosing engineering. Like, they gave her the hardest time. And not only that, me and her got close because we both failed our first Calc 115 exam.
Because, that's what happens when you go through something like that. It brings you closer together, right?
No, for real. Mm-hmm. She went to King.
King. Okay.
Yeah, so she went to King. So we both went to Detroit Public Schools.
Yeah.
We came in there. We failed our first math exam, and we looked at each other. And we was like, dang, what we gonna do?
Is this what it's gonna be like the next 4 years?
I
oh my
know.
God. Yeah.
So what they did was they created another class for us, and it was like the in-between class. Like, you're not pre-calc. I mean, you do pre-calc, but you're not like the math 125 people, right?
Right.
The trigonometry stuff.
Yeah.
So like, you gonna do I mean, it wasn't what was it? Algebra. It was
algebra.
Like,
it was algebra.
It was an algebra class.
Yep.
So they put us in this in-between class that they just kind of made up to bridge the gap.
Damn. Yeah.
And so they made it up and they put us in it, and then we got like B's in that, and then we went to 115 the next time, and we did good. We actually did pretty good.
So it worked.
It did.
Because 115 was the first calc, right?
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. So
but then I failed calc too.
Well, hey, listen, you amongst many other. I remember, man, the curve, because the curve is this thing that they do and everybody does bad, so they have to kind of change. I guess the grading, right? They have to sort of change the scaling, I guess, of what grade you get. So I remember one time we had a Calc 2 exam. I think I got like a 38%. And literally that was like a C+. That's how bad that's how bad everybody did in there. And it's like, okay, at some point we have to ask ourselves, is it the students or is it the teachers making these tests unnecessarily harder than they need to be? But that's the weed out process. Because
they weed you out fast.
They weed you out. Only the strong survive, like you said.
For real. I took Calc 2 3 times, maybe 2. I think I took it 3 times.
Damn.
So I didn't get all the way through the second time. So the first time I took it, I failed, right?
Yeah.
Second time I took it, I was like, you know what? This ain't gonna work. I dropped it. So then,
you knew from the beginning, like, I'm headed down the same path.
I'm like, I ain't doing it. So then, you know what? I wised up. And so what I said I was gonna do is like, I'm gonna take this in the spring when I can just focus on this and I can just focus on organic chemistry. And so I did the 2 together, and I ended up getting like a B+.
That's odd that you did 2 of the hardest things together.
And I did good.
And you did better than you did taking them separately, right?
I ended up that semester with like a 3-something in the summer, but during the school year, trying to take it all together and everything happening on campus, like, I failed. I was like, whew.
So how was it balancing? And then not only that, you cheerleading at a D1 level. How was it balancing the two?
Yeah, you got to find your groove. Like, you had to, because it was harder because, one, I felt like I was behind, right? So then I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to do the engineering work. I'm trying to keep everything together. And like, there was a point in time where I had a breakdown, and I was like, you know what? Like, I can't do this.
Wow.
And I felt like more so I was disappointed in my parents. Like, they got all this faith in me, and I'm like, crap.
Man.
I'm disappointing them, and they have no idea. Like, at this point, they had no idea how I was doing in school.
Yeah.
And then so I was in my junior. It was like, I think it was my junior year, my normal junior year. And I got to the point where I was like, man, I'm not going to get any engineering experience because nobody's going to hire me because my GPA is trash.
Wow.
So I was like, you know what? I was like, it's time to tell my parents.
Yeah, that's about the time to do it. Yeah.
I told them because it was going to put me at jeopardy of losing my financial aid too.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell my parents.
Which would have impacted them because they would have had to come out.
Oh, they would have had to come out. Well, my dad lost his job my junior year too. Sorry, my junior year in the winter. And then when he lost his job, he wasn't able to pay my bill for me to register. And so like the University of Michigan, I worked in the engineering office, like in the women in engineering office. And so let me tell you, God be working stuff out. And I went in there, and one day I was crying, and the lady, and Debbie Taylor, that was her name. She saw me crying. She's like, "What's wrong, Patrice?" I'm like, "My dad can't afford to pay my tuition. He just lost his job, and I'm not going to be able to register for next semester." And she's like, "You know what? Give me a second." And she goes into, I don't know if you remember Jean Mirabito.
No.
Jean Mirabito was the head of like inclusion and diversity in the engineering sector, right? So she goes and talks to Jean. She goes straight to her office, goes in there. Jean, she tells Jean the situation. She's like, "Go talk to Jean." I go into Jean's office. This white lady, very, very pretty white lady, very put together. I go in her office and I tell her what's happening. She's like, "Tell me a little bit about what's going on." I like explain to her about my dad, and I'm like still in tears. And she's like, "Listen, don't worry. I covered it." I was like, "What?"
What?
Yeah, I just walked in. I was like, "You did what?"
Yeah.
And that wasn't even the first time that's happened. Another time it happened like my senior year. I wasn't going to be able to go. And there was this scholarship office in engineering. And they would take these scholarships that they hadn't given away yet, and they gave them to me.
Wow.
So that I can register and I can stay in school.
Wow.
And I was like, man, God, position is everything.
Man,
Favor ain't fair.
I had a similar experience. I won't even mention the lady's name in the financial aid department because I don't want to incriminate her in any way. But and my wife, she's behind the scenes. She remembers this. I was getting ready to go into maybe my junior year. So I was getting ready to go into my junior year, and my financial aid had basically ran out because my mother had got married the previous year. So it went from me having a bill that was like, a couple of $100 because financial aid covered most of it to like I owe 14 grand.
I'm telling you.
And I'm like, wait, he's not my real dad.
Wait a minute, this ain't my daddy.
Right. So I went and I'm thinking like I'm about to probably come back home, go to Wayne State, whatever the case may be. I went and I talked to the financial aid advisor. And she really liked me. We had a really good relationship with each other because I was always in there trying to, sort my affairs out. And she was like, so your mother just got married, right, to your stepdad? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, man, I guess they it's messed up that they fell on hard times and now they're separated. And I said, no, they not. They're doing really. I didn't catch the hint. I said they're happily married. She was like, well, sometimes people they separate, and and if they separate, then he's not responsible. His income doesn't have to be included in the total income. Right. And they're only going to consider. I said, you know what? Maybe they are separated.
Maybe they are.
I got home. I talked to my mom. She said, I'm a Christian, right? I said, hey, listen.
She's like, don't be up here lying on me.
I'm a Christian, but of course, it just made sense to do the wrong thing in this case. But we got through.
Listen.
It, so, yeah.
Because you know what? And it's funny you say that because you think about the ram in the bush. Like you be like, but God, you put the ram. And there's the bush. Yeah. And there's the out. Let's go. And he kind of allows things to happen, but he's orchestrating it all in the background. And it's just like, it's such a blessing. Yeah. So many situations happen like that we don't think twice about. And then like we get in a moment where we're ungrateful. Yeah. Right? And you'd be like, wait a minute, but he just worked that situation out. And if he could work that out at that moment, he could work this out at this moment. Yeah. And so a lot of times we forget.
Yeah, because we're like, mice in a maze and we're just looking straight ahead and God has this aerial view so he can see every barrier, every obstacle, right?
Everything that we going to encounter.
Yeah.
And he know what mistakes we going to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So did when you came out or when you graduated, did you start working as a chemical engineer?
So I started in supply chain, and when I graduated, so my last semester of school, I got engaged.
Okay.
I got engaged my last semester. I found out I was pregnant my last semester.
Wait, hold on. That's because I know Peyton is older, and I just
you didn't put the two together.
Wait, so first, let me ask you this, because a lot of women at that time, they were prioritizing like career aspirations and all of these things over family, and you were like, okay, I can juggle both of these because I want both of them.
Yeah. Oh, right? No, I want it all. I still want it all.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So you ended up meeting the guy,
Yeah, I ended up meeting her dad. And so when we met, actually I've known him since I was younger. And so we reconnected over Facebook. Lord, in the DMs. No, we reconnected over Facebook. And we started kind of dating or talking. And then like my last semester of school, it was like, it kind of got a little serious and it got serious fast. I was like, oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, this is real. He's like, I love you. I'm like, wait, oh, really? What? I'm like, okay, great. I love you too.
Oh,
like,
you said it back right away, right?
Like, no, but I did. I did. So then I was like, okay, this is quick. And then like, it was around Thanksgiving, and I find out, like, I wake up in the middle of the night. He's like staying over. My parents ain't like that. They didn't like it at all. This is part of the reason. They didn't like it.
Wait, hold on. He was staying over at your place in college.
In college.
But you were honest and you told your parents, yeah.
My parents know, because so what he did was when he came in, he was like, how much time do you spend with your family? And I'm like, I kind of just leave them in Detroit and I kind of stay in Ann Arbor, We only 30 minutes away. Yeah. He's like, well, maybe you should go to your dad's church. Like, why don't you go to your dad's church? And I'm like, it wasn't no hard feelings. I just didn't want to go back home.
I feel you.
It was like, I love them. No, but I wanted to study. It was easy for me to stay home.
It's just like being in the service, right? Where they say once you get out there, it's not like being in the service actually, but once you're out there, you have to sort of shut off your family because that can be
a distraction.
It can be a distraction.
It is, and the thing is that like you're already on Michigan's campus. Like I already wasn't doing the greatest in school. I didn't want to have to face them every week and have to look at them like and this. I just
because that was your motivation.
It
was.
And internally,
you wanted to make them proud. Yep.
Internally, it would crush me like to So I just kept my distance. But he's like, no, we should go to your dad's church. He was like, you know what? I'll drive you every Sunday.
What?
And he didn't lie. He really did. I was like, oh my gosh.
I can see why you got engaged. Okay.
So he drove me every Sunday to church and everything. And so one day he was over and I had spent like an all-nighter on our senior project. You know how we had to do the senior projects at the end of our senior year. So I'm doing my senior project and we up all night long. And I get back to my apartment and I go to sleep. Like I'm exhausted. And I feel like him playing with my fingers, right? He was like playing with my fingers. It was like he was doing something with them. And I think he was like sizing my hand. I think he was like sizing my fingers. And I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
So he's like sizing it, trying to see like what's going to fit or what. And so then I wake up, like, I'm like, what are you? And he's like, Patrice. I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, what? I'm asleep. Like, he's like, I love you. And I was like, that's nice. Like, I love you too. Like,
yeah. Let me go back to sleep now.
But he began to like tell me how much he loves me and how much I was his perfect person. And like, he proposes to me like right then and there. And I'm like, what? I didn't imagine me being proposed to like this.
Yeah.
So it all happened kind of fast. But
you was thinking like a nice candlelit dip, but it's all good. We in college.
We are in college. And that wasn't his vision, right? His vision was the way that it happened. Like, and so, we get caught up in these visions in our heads as women. It's like, I want the rose petals leading up to it. I want everybody lined up, have all of my family in the background. And it just wasn't like that. It was nothing the way that I envisioned it.
But sometimes you can get caught up in those visions and then lose the actual blessing that's right in front of you.
And I did. And to be honest with you, I did. I did. It's gonna get real.
We ain't playing around.
It's gonna get real. No. I'm gonna be completely honest, and this will be the first time that I tell this like on camera. So
conversations with TinBridge, man. We got another one. Come on.
No, so I did. I took that moment for granted. I took the moment for granted. I took the time for granted, and like he was in love. Like he was like really in love with me, and I felt like this is hindsight 2020. This is years later, right?
Yeah.
I felt like I could have given him more in that moment, and I felt like I held back. And I held back thinking about what everybody else wanted for me and not what God had set right in front of me. And you know what? What's funny is that like I tried to deny him, and God is like, you know what? He told me that he was my husband too. That's the crazy part. Like I had prayed about it. I was like praying about it. And this guy told me a while ago, like months before that, he's like, you need to start preparing your heart to get married. And I'm like, I'm 23. Like, bro, I'm not about to prepare my heart to get married. Like this ain't it. Like I'm supposed to have this bomb career. I'm supposed to be traveling. Prepare my heart to get married? Not yet. He's like, no, you need to start preparing your heart to get married. And he's like, here are some books that God is telling me to give you. And I'm like, what? Like, no, bro, I'm not about to get married. But I went and got the books.
Yeah.
And I started reading them. I was like, dang, this stuff is interesting, right? Thinking about how men think about things, how birth order affects the way you are in marriage, how like your family and codependency and all of that, how it plays a part in marriage. He had me reading some pretty dope books, right? But I didn't realize I was going to be engaged before the end of that year.
God.
And I was engaged before the end of the year. I was like, so when I came to tell my parents was like, you know what, Patrice, no. My dad's like, you know what, because he had a meeting with my dad, and my dad gave him a blessing, but my mama was like, no. My mama said
so
no.
So your mom and dad wasn't on the same page with
Heck
this?
no.
Wow.
No. My dad was like, oh, yeah. My mom was like, no. She was like, he rushed in, he gonna rush out.
Wow, that's what she said? And her and your dad, they were married at that time?
They married. They still married.
Wow.
My parents married, but they don't always be on the same.
That's real life. That's real life.
That's real marriage, right? So, so they said no. I ended up graduating from school. Right before I graduated, I was like, I had an interview with a company called Unilever. And so I got the job with them. Wow. And they had flew me out to New York, and they were like, hey, we're going to fly you out to New York. You're going to have dinner and with the VPs. I'm sitting there with dinner with the VPs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, something don't feel right.
Yeah.
I'm like, something don't feel right. Something don't feel right about this situation.
Yeah, just like, in your spirit, you
can
feel it.
Yeah. And then I went home and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant. I didn't miss no periods, no nothing. It was like, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant.
That was kind of like what happened with like Will and Jada. I think when she first got, when she first got pregnant, it was right after they had sex, and she woke up and was like, I think I'm pregnant. And he like, how the hell can we just yeah, but hey, that's
well,
wow.
And this was like 2 weeks after we got engaged.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant.
And you just knew, you just had
I just knew.
Wow.
And then we got back, I took a pregnancy test and I was pregnant. And
How old were you at this point?
20, I was 23.
I got you. Okay.
No. Was I 23?
I think you were.
I think I might have been 23. But the funny thing is that my parents were like, I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my parents for 4 months. I hid that pregnancy.
Wow.
Bad. Don't do that.
Because again, you're thinking about their plan.
I'm thinking about their plan for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about how I disappointed them. And mind you, this is what I'm thinking about in college too, right? Mm-hmm. And so like at some point in time, and that he never was like that. He's like, I don't care what nobody think. I do what I want. And ain't nobody gonna tell me what to do. Not my parents, not you, not your parents, not nobody. And so he stands his ground on that. And so you gotta respect it.
Kind of polar opposites at that point.
Polar opposite.
I got you.
Polar opposite. And I was the people pleaser. I'm like, oh, I want to please my family. I just want them to be proud of me.
Yeah.
And so at that point,
but that sometimes can be a good thing because your partner's strengths can rub off on you.
Oh
and all that.
Yeah. I think that was great. But I think the part where I wasn't mature enough to tell them no. Like,
Ooh,
so I wasn't mature to tell them, like, or defend him. Yeah. Like, because my family.
Defend him to your parents.
Oh, to my whole family at this point, because my mama said no. So my aunties jumped on board and they said no. And so everybody didn't like it. And so it just became crazy.
Okay. And then add on top of that, now you're pregnant.
Now I'm pregnant.
4 months go by. You don't even tell anybody.
I don't tell anybody until I get to the point where I'm about to crack. And I was going into like a little depression. And so in that,
did you accept the job offer?
I did.
Okay, got you.
And
the
job offer required me to travel every year for 3 years.
Shit.
No.
On top of being pregnant, about to have a kid.
On top of getting engaged.
Yep.
Yeah. So all of this happened all at once. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, you know what? Okay, what am I about to do? And so I was like, well, I guess we already engaged, so we gonna have this baby. And and so when we went through, it was tough. Mm-hmm. It was a little tough. My parents was like, no, they didn't know. And so 4 months when it was time and I started cracking under pressure, he had went to like San Diego because that's where he lived at the time. And when he went, I told my parents because I was at home with them. Remember, I kept my distance. I would keep my distance so I didn't have to come up with the truth, right? I didn't want to come out with the truth, so I was just like, because stay in Ann Arbor.
Your parents can see right through you, and it's like. I get you.
It's really hard for me to lie.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh. Yeah. So at that point, I just cracked. I was like, listen, I'm pregnant. And I just was bawling, crying. My dad is like, so? I was like, what? I was like, what was that? My dad was like, so? He's like, you did everything I've asked you to do as my daughter. He was like, you've done. Ain't that crazy? The Pastor Lang. No, let me not.
No, but that's,
Pastor Langford. Yeah. But the thing is that that's love though. Yeah. Right? So I don't care what mistakes you make as my child, right? You made a mistake. You have a kid. That doesn't make you any less my child. Mm-hmm. And so growing up, he was like, listen, don't get pregnant.
Of course, that's what he's supposed to say.
That was his only thing. Yeah. Like you in high school, you get pregnant, I ain't taking care of your kid. Yeah, I'm like, oh, don't get pregnant. Yeah. Got it. He was like, you didn't get pregnant in high school. He was like, you're out of college. You have secured a job. Like you're grown. Like you're engaged.
Absolutely.
He's like, how old am I? And I told him how old he was. And he's like, how old was he was like, your grandparents, they got married at this date. They were pregnant. My grandparents have been married so long, and they were pregnant before when they had him.
Wow.
I mean, they were pregnant before they got married. Yeah.
But it just shows you how the world had changed since that point because, in not only your dad's generation, in your grandparents' generation, that was completely normal to get married and have a kid at that age, even younger. But then our generation comes and it's like, oh, that's... like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's so taboo to
don't
do it.
Right.
Right.
And so my mom was like, so you go.
I can almost imagine what her position was on this. Right?
On her position, she like, so you about to do this? And my dad was like, what? So my mom was like, you just accepted this job. So this is the old school coming out, right? Yeah. You just accepted this job. They're not going to accept you and your baby. So what you gonna do? And I was like, yes, they are. I said, it's illegal for them not to. And I did my research because I told you I felt like I was going to be pregnant. Right. And so like I was doing my research on a company, seeing what maternal benefits they had and everything. I already knew. I already had a plan. But my mama was like, like, I don't know how that's going to work. Well,
Well, and I'm sure it ended up working, right? But there was some legitimacy to her argument too, because if you just getting your foot in the door somewhere, sometimes that can, you could take a hit if you out for a certain amount of time, maternity leave, and you ain't had a chance to really establish yourself. So I'm sure there was some legitimate concerns on her end, but ultimately what ended up happening, well, you ended up having a baby, obviously.
I negotiated.
Yeah.
So what I did was I was like, you know what? I know I'm going to be pregnant. I only have a year at this location. I planned out and I was like, can I start 4 months early? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, cool. I didn't tell them I was pregnant.
You negotiated.
I did.
I said, if I can start early and get my foot in right now, I'm already in that
and I'm gonna have benefits.
Ooh.
So
because the benefits kick in like a couple of months later.
They do. So I ended up getting my benefits. Right. I started work 4 months early. I knew I was gonna be going out by August. I started in March. And so when I started, they were like, oh, like here's your benefits package. It'll kick in after 90 days. I'm like, yes. I'm like, damn. So then I didn't tell them I was pregnant until I was 7 months.
Wow.
Because I'm like, these people don't know me from a box of rocks.
Absolutely.
So they don't know that I'm a little chunky right now.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't know. Like, new job, you making more money. You got, more money for some good takeout food. They don't know.
Right. They don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did. I ended up having a baby. I ended up, at that time, I was like, you know what? We need to just call off this engagement.
Wait, you said that? Well, so what?
It was a lot of things that transpired.
Okay, you don't have to mention all of them. You don't have to
mention
all of them.
But the thing is that I just felt like we weren't on the same page at the same time. And so he felt like that too. And so we ended up having the baby and we really tried. We tried our hardest. And like, although we were in love, like, at that time, it was just like, I need this. I need you to be here, right? And he was like conflicted. Like
still engaged at this point.
Still engaged. Okay. He was just conflicted. And so I'm just like, you know what? You don't have to be here. You could be here. I want you to be here. But if you can't handle it, I was like, you can, I mean, it's okay. Like, he was on a plane. The next day it was like, no, I'm doing this. Like, we're doing this. So we had Peyton, little Miss Peyton. Nothing we regret about that decision.
Man, she's
phenomenal.
Listen,
she's a phenomenal kid.
A ball of joy, so much personality, followed in the same footsteps as her mom. Because I think she's better than me. She's cheerleading and all of that. She's even acting too.
She is. She's better. Yeah. She's better. I don't regret not a moment. And she was, so even when we were going, me and her dad were going back and forth, like she was, and I had to travel, right? So I spent a year. Where was I? In Virginia. She was born in Virginia. We spent a year in Virginia. It was time to move. A year later, he was like, I'm not moving to Connecticut with you and the baby. So I had to single parent it up on the road. We had to figure stuff out. Like, we figured it out together. It was like we were growing. It was almost like we were growing up together. Yeah. But the thing is, a lot of people in the rotational program that I took with Unilever, a lot of them were on the road by themselves. And I lucked up because I had my baby. Yeah. And so they were like, I don't know how you're being a single parent and doing this rigorous program. Da 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 da. I'm like, you don't know what God I serve. You
don't know what God I serve. And then the thing is that it's an advantage for you because even being away and being on the road, you have something meaningful out there to kind of
work for. Yeah, and to work toward. And you know what? Your kids look at you as an example, right? Yeah. So it's like she looking at me like.
And it reminds you, like, I got to be on my A game. I got to get my act together. I don't want to take any, shortcuts. I don't want to cut any corners while I'm working because this little person right here is watching me. Absolutely.
And at the same time, it's pressure because you're like, man, this little person is watching me.
Yeah.
Like, if I mess up, and it's like, man, as a parent, do we always do the right thing? Why do we even know?
Yeah.
How do we even know? I don't know. Maybe it's some stuff
we don't. It out. We figure, like you said, we figuring it out on the fly. That's really what it is.
Oh, did I do this right? Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know.
Am I doing this right?
So, I mean, still to this day, I be feeling that way. But as she grew up, it's like I taught her things that, I was like, how much can I teach her before she's 5 years old? And like, I would teach her things on my days off, but I would be working 12-hour shifts while she was like a toddler. So I would work those 12 hours, and then the days I would have off, I would spend all day teaching her everything I could, And my parents were like, why are you teaching her sign language? Why are you teaching her how to count? I mean, how to say the alphabet in Spanish?
What's the harm in knowing these things?
The thing is that I would send them with her grandparents for the summer, and they would be like, she could communicate with us.
Wow. I'm like, that's where it came in handy. You had the vision. Yeah.
I'm like, duh. She can tell you when she's hungry. She can tell you when she's thirsty. She can tell you when she wants something. She can communicate with you and she can talk.
So you and your fiance at this time had you were trying to make this thing work.
We tried. We tried to lie.
Of course, and you had a great reason with respect to Peyton to try to make it work, to really exhaust every opportunity to make it work possible, right? So what was the breaking point? At what point did you guys decide, okay, this ain't it? We probably better off just co-parenting, you know?
Well, we had a rough time co-parenting when Peyton was younger. Like, we had a really rough time. And so it was more so rough because I felt like I needed to control the situation, and he felt like he needed to control the situation. So it was like a battle. It was like, who was gonna do it? I'm like, listen, you shouldn't do this, this, and this. And he's like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. Like, right? So it was like, oh, that just ate me up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, co-parenting is dying to self. So it's like, if I'm gonna co-parent, and even when you're like actually parenting, right? Like, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't just about me. This is about the child and what's best for her.
So you have to put your own.
So you got to put your
ego
own
to the side.
Yeah. And so when we finally got to that point, we were like in court, like trying to figure out a co-parenting strategy. And when we went to court this one time, this is how we ended up married. We went to court to co-parent. Plot twist, like. We went to court. You wasn't expecting that, was you?
Wait, so hold on. Y'all go to court. Y'all trying to figure out the co-parenting situation. Then y'all like, you know what? Maybe we need to find somebody in here who could just, we could say our vows and we could just go ahead and get this. Like, how did that happen? No, you don't have to get too explicit in terms of how it happened.
So we were in the courtroom and, we were going back and forth and they were like, you guys need to agree on a strategy. And so the judge is like, you can't control what he does and he can't control what you do. And she was like, go out of my courtroom and go figure out a schedule for your child, right? So she sends us out and we go, and then the court officer follows her out. And I'm like, I ain't never seen. Have you ever seen, like, in a courtroom, the court officer follow people? I know they take people out, but I ain't never seen them follow people out. So he following us out of the courtroom. At this time, I'm steaming. I'm mad. Like, I'm real mad because I didn't get my way, right? And so I'm out there, and he's like, listen. I'm like, he the counselor at this point in time. He's like, listen, you need to listen to her, and she needs to listen to you. And the courts, you don't want them in your household.
So this dude, just the security person,
right? The security guard.
He done put on another hat. Like, hold on, I gotta help this young black love right here. Yeah.
So he comes,
and
he's like, he was like, me and my wife, she got a son, and him and her dad, her and his dad are just always at it, and like, I hate to see it, and I just want to let y'all know that this is what y'all need to do. And her father was like, sir, you are completely right. And I'm looking at him like,
what?
No, you didn't. And he's like, you're completely right. I just want to listen to her. I'm like, when? So at that point in time, he's like, yeah, just listen to her. So we go over to the other side, like outside of the courtroom, and we start talking. And he's like, you think I moved halfway across the country for Peyton? I was like, yeah, you always made me feel that way. And so we started talking, and he's like, no, I want you and I want our family. I was like, I'm not on the table. He was like, you can have your visitation with your daughter. Yeah, I told her I wasn't on the table. And so I was like, I'm not on the table. You have to figure it. We can figure it out with Peyton, but I'm not on the table. He's like, no, I want my family. I was like, no, you're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah, because at that time, you're thinking like, this, we can't repair this. It's
no,
at a point.
No, I thought we were at a breaking point,
Yeah.
So we went outside. We kind of caught up a little bit. And he's like, I don't know how to prove to you that I want you and I want Peyton. And I was like, my parking is about to expire.
Ooh.
So can you drive me to my car?
Whoa.
Like, can you drive me to? So he's like, yeah, I'll drive you over here to the car. So we get into the garage, right, and the elevator, and he's like, you know what? He was like, I need to show you, and I was like, okay, but I just really need to get to my car.
Oh, this is getting juicy, right? Okay.
He opens the door to get me in the car, right? He opens the door, and when I turn around, he's down on one knee, and he asked me to marry him, and I was like, bro, get up.
That's the way because you said that when he first did it, when he woke you up out your sleep, that didn't necessarily match your idea of what a proposal would be. But this was more like it, right? He got down on one knee.
He did get down on one knee. We in a parking garage. It's mostly just us. And he on this dusty floor in the suit. I'm like, get up. It's okay. Just get up. I'm like, you're not serious. He was like, no, I'm serious. I was like, you're not serious. He's like, no, I am.
Wow.
And so He's like, I'm gonna prove to you how serious. We go, the same building we were in to do the court arrangement was the same building that you get married in.
Yeah.
The same exact building. They call me that young building. So we went in there. He's like, what floor do we go to get married? And she was like, the 3rd floor. And I was like, you serious? He was like, I'm dead serious.
Hold on, let's just stop right here. I don't know what this brother's name is, but shout out. Shout out to you, man. Like that, I mean, all right, keep going. I'm sorry.
He was like, no, I'm dead serious. He went up there, he got the applications. He's like, listen, what do we have to do to get married today? And I was like, you're not serious. He was like, no, I'm dead serious. He's like, I'm completely serious.
And
he was like, what documents do we need to have? She's like, oh, y'all just need your ID or your passport.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this lady is serious.
Wow.
We leave the courtroom. We grab the documents. We leave. He's like, you go get your ID. I'm going to go get mine. And I'm like, God, this can't be happening. Because in my mind, I'm like, this should have happened years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And it didn't. And at this time, Peyton's 6. Peyton's like 5. She's 5. She's gonna be 6. So I'm like, no way this is about to happen, right? And so and I'm like, God, what you want me to do? And I turn on the radio, and the song "I Trust You" came on. You know,
ooh,
yeah. I was like,
that's your sign right
there. No, because I still didn't take it, right? So then I looked at the date. Uh-huh. So when we first got engaged, I set a wedding date, and everybody was like, why are you setting that wedding date? It's so far away. Like, why would you do that? And so everybody deterred me from doing that, and I changed the date. And so the date that he proposed to me and the date we actually got married was the original wedding date that I had set for us back then.
Get the heck out of here.
Get
what
the
a coincidence.
Out of here. I know. I was tripped out by that. I was tripped out. I was like, what's today? And it was 7/21/2017.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow. I'm like, and I was able to find my passport. We get to the courthouse.
Everything was working out.
Everything came together.
Y'all had everything y'all needed right there.
But guess what? My parents didn't know.
Ooh, okay.
He called his mama right when we left the courtroom. And I was like, I'm going to tell them.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell them I'm married. And the lady at the front desk was like, listen, baby, they got to accept him. He your husband now. Yeah. I'm like, man, you don't understand. She done seen this
play out so many times before. So
and she was like, you'll thank me in 50 years.
Yeah.
I was like, no way. So all of that went down. We ended up married. And they did end up accepting it eventually. But then we kind of fell on hard times. Like, I don't know. Maybe you don't know. Like, your first year of marriage is hard.
Every year.
Like, it can be.
But you're right. It is that first however many years, especially the first year, it's hard. And one of the reasons, and I think you might agree with me on this, is because you have 2 individuals, right? And what happens is you keep butting heads and you don't really trust each other enough yet because you haven't built up enough experience. So if I tell you, hey, I don't like this, it's hard for you to trust that I have your best interest at heart. And it's hard for me to trust that you have my best interest at heart. And then you have these 2 individuals who are trying to control each other. Mm-hmm. And that's not necessarily good. The minute I let go of that control and I was like, you know what? This is who she is. The minute everything else started getting better. And then I had to realize, wait, if I keep complaining over the same thing that she does, well, she's not the problem anymore. It's me because I haven't accepted this person for who she is, and that's why it's hard those first however many years.
You know what? That's so funny you say that because I like as I was going through this, I was like, you know what? I should write a book. Because I thought about it.
Hold on, wait. You based on the last 35 minutes of our conversation, you should write a book.
That's not even the most interesting part of my life. I just want you to.
We gotta say you're gonna be a regular guest on this joint.
No, but no. So you're right though, because it wasn't until I had to die to self. But how much? What does it normally take for us to die to self? Like it takes us a long time.
Die to self.
And like,
wow.
It's really a person like, and I would say, and it's not to pick on us women, but us women have a hard time doing it. Like it's really hard.
I need you to expound on this.
It's just hard. Like it can be hard because we think a lot of times when a person thinks that they're right, it's like, and like, I thought I was right. Like you did this to me. Woe is me. You cheated on me.
Like playing a victim, so to speak.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you like learn that. Like you learn it. And so you never ever, you never self-reflect. And I think it's more so, and I'm not going to say this is like I know a lot of women that don't do the self-reflecting.
So this is not like a blanket statement for all women.
No.
The women that it applies to. Yeah.
No, but I encourage women. Like anytime like they're asking me for relationship advice or things like that, and I'm like, did you talk to God about this? Like, but I always encourage them to self-reflect, because God, so in my marriage, there was a lot that happened, right? And in that lot that happened in that first year, the devil is attacking, right? I'm going to throw this at y'all. I'm going to throw financial troubles at y'all. I'm going to throw kid troubles at y'all. I'm going to throw all the family troubles.
Because y'all were doing something right. And if the devil ain't bothering you, then
bro,
what do that mean, right?
Bro,
that means you ain't doing nothing.
But the thing is that when you're in that battle and the both of y'all aren't on the same page, like we gonna stick this out, like we gonna get through this, it becomes a one-sided thing, right? And so me, like, I wanted to fight and he didn't want to fight. Right? He's not, when I say fight, I don't mean fight each other.
So you're me
fighting for the relationship.
You're me in my marriage, and he's my wife. My wife doesn't like the conflict like that.
Oh no conflict, no. So anytime it got conflict, it was like, he'd rather cut ties and be done than to at that point, and then to like try to figure it out like that. And so he was just like, when it wasn't what he thought it was going to be, the way he thought it was going to be, like my family, I saw my parents stick it out. Like when I say they stuck it out, good, better, they stuck it out, you know? Yeah. And normally we give up too fast in relationships. We be like, oh, it don't work because it ain't supposed to be. But really, do we seek God out about that? Because like I had to learn to seek God in my marriage when we were going through the hard times. And then when we got to the point where it was time for divorce, which was a struggle, it was terrible. But God showed me a lot of myself and the stuff that I could have done better.
And one of those things, like you said, is, die to self. You talk about self-reflection. And if you don't self-reflect, you can't self-correct.
No, you can't. And the funny thing is, we have the best relationship. Like
I see, because look, I'm looking at your social media. You know me, I'm just... I'm looking at
nosy.
I'm nosy. And every time you post something inspirational, I can see him down there, like, commenting or something like that. And I think it, maybe his last, I can't remember how I kind of made the connection or whatever. But I'm like, damn, they actually support each other.
We do.
And they actually have a great relationship.
We do. And it didn't start out that way. I told you. So like, I mean, we've always been friends, but like we've been better friends. And so like I had to come to terms with this because, and this is me being transparent, right? It was a struggle in our marriage, right? It was a struggle going through the divorce. But in the divorce, I had to realize that God had purpose in it. And so as I was, and like, we don't want to get divorced, right? And me being raised as a Christian, going back to the beginning, right? Raised as a Christian, I really felt like I failed. Like when I got divorced, but I had a spiritual mentor, God bless her soul, like rest her soul, because she just passed away not too long ago. Wow. And she lived with me for 3 years going through my divorce.
I'm so sorry to hear about the passing, but she lived with you for 3 years.
She did. The whole time I went through the time I went through my divorce, she moved with me, and she had been with me, and she had told my daughter when we were going through the divorce, she said, "I'm going to live with you guys until God mends your broken heart."
Wow.
And she did. And I didn't know that the living with us would end in her passing away.
Man, I'm getting chills just because. So it's almost like God, man, that's crazy.
So she taught me how to seek after God when my relationship went bad.
Yeah.
And how to allow God to lead me and not my emotions.
Yeah.
And how to understand how I'm hearing from him and how I'm not hearing from him. And how to position myself to for my husband to be drawn to me. And so what was funny is that I was positioning myself while we were going through the divorce. And when we would be praying about it, like she would fast with me and pray with me. And when we'd be praying about it, she was like, you know what? Did you ask God about it? And ask God about mending our marriage, right? I'm like, I just want us to be back together, because we weren't divorced at the time yet when she started living with me.
Because there was still hope at this point.
Yeah. And so I asked her, and we started praying about it. And she was like, you know what? She was like, let's ask God about it. Ask him to speak to you out of his word. I asked him to speak to me out of the word. And every time we would go back to his word, he would be like, you know what? Like God's going to put y'all back together. Like y'all going to be married. Like that's your husband. And I'm like, how? Like,
because it wasn't what you...
It wasn't working. It wasn't, but it wasn't the time. Right? So it's like, I'm like, how does he keep telling me this? But this keeps happening. Right? So we get to the point where the divorce is here. And even in the divorce, like while we were going through the divorce proceeding, it was just like surreal.
Wow.
It's a story for another time, but it was surreal. And we get divorced, and I was sad for maybe 3 days. Like, wanted to stay in bed, wanted to crawl under a rock. And then I had to come out of it because I was like, you know what, God? Just because sometimes you have to pull things apart in order to bring it back together. And sometimes you have to pull it apart because we all have to work out our own soul salvation. So I got to work out what's in me that needs to be changed, and he's got to work out what's in him. And so while I'm working out what's in me, God's going to work it out what's in him. And I got to trust that God's going to do that. So.
You know, it's beautiful that you mention those things or whatever in terms of just understanding that sometimes, you know, God, you know, things have to be broken apart in order for God to put it back together stronger, in order for it to be put back together stronger. So, and then the other thing is this, a lot of times people think that, oh, well, that experience was in vain, or I wish it had never happened, but that's not entirely true, because the next person who chooses you, he's going to marry you based on the version that you are after the divorce, not based on the person that you were prior to it, because you became somebody else, you know, going through that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I didn't take that trauma with me.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking the previous trauma. I'm not taking the previous failures.
Well, you became somebody else. You became a stronger person. Sometimes we can become worse, and things can kind of lead to our demise, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
You know, you know, one of the reasons why I even wanted you to be on the show, amongst so many others, but one of the biggest reasons is that on social media I get so inspired, right? Because not only are you traveling from city to city, and, you know, she helps, I mean, straight up, businesses that are failing, that are not doing great, she goes in and she coaches them on how to run more efficiently. And that's, I'm oversimplifying it. I'm sure it's much more complicated than that, right? The other thing is that she, you know, I mean, I've seen like stuff with you helping people put like vision boards together.
Yep, I've done vision boards, parties.
Setting their goals and this, that, and the third. I'm talking about helping them lose weight, helping them get their credit right so that they can make the purchases that they need to make in order to live comfortable lives. So, I mean, all of these things that you do on top of being a mother, you know, on top of just everything else that you have going on. Like, so how did you get into this space where you're just helping people and where you're traveling from city to city helping businesses? How did you go from chemical engineering, you know, to this space?
Yeah, I started off in supply chain. And as I was going through like doing a supply chain internship, I was like, you know what, this is really cool. And then I was introduced in doing my supply chain internship. I was a reliability engineer for like the Dove bar soap plant.
Reliability engineer.
So like I'm improving the reliability of the equipment. I'm helping them to make more batches so that they can make more bars of soap and they could sell it to their customers. And so when I was doing that, I started learning about this concept called continuous improvement. And I got really passionate about it. And I'm like, And so I'm like, this is cool. So like I started learning
terms like Kaizen and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah, like Kaizen. So I led a Kaizen.
Okay.
I led it. I led one in my internship, in my co-op. I led one when I lived in Chicago.
That's another flex. So keep going. No, but she's so humble though, so I got to flex for her. But keep going.
No, so I led one with the plant leadership, or the plant. It was some engineers. It was like a cross-functional team. Got them really great results. And then after that, we went. I interviewed for the rotational program. And so as I moved around state to state, I went from Virginia to Connecticut to Arkansas. By the time I got to like my last rotation, I was like, you know, I learned different parts of the supply chain. So I basically learned how the business kind of gets to the end product and gets it to the customer.
Wow.
So I learned different parts of that. So I was a manufacturing supervisor. I did customer service and logistics where I managed the food orders for Target. And then I became like a project manager. And when I did that, I still had a love for continuous improvement. And on top of that, if you pair that with the fact that I love coaching people and I've always loved helping people, but I started finding out, like in engineering, we're always the ones that find the root cause, or we look for the gap. Like, wait a minute, here's where your problem is, and we're going to help you solve it,
it's
right?
Like when you came on set, you was like, okay, how are these cameras?
I know.
So what's happening here? You the first guest. I was like, Bridget, she's an engineer, so she wants to know how. Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
I'm like, how are you syncing these? Like, how? So I just I always loved helping people. And so I coached cheerleading throughout my college career and high school. And then as I learned continuous improvement, I really felt like it had a vibe of coaching.
Wow.
Like I was helping people understand something and I was coaching them through the methodology and the process. And I'm like, I like this. And so I told the plant manager that I worked for at the time, like, this is what I want to do, because it was time for me to go into my management role, because I was in an accelerated management program. And he's like, I don't think that's a good idea. And I was like, wait, like, wait a minute, this is what I want to do. And he's like, no, he's like, I think you should be a plant manager where you manage an entire plant and make sure it functions properly, right? And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to be a continuous improvement manager or engineer, you know? He's like, how about this? I'll give you that job if you stay in Arkansas for 3 more years. And I was like, no, I'm not staying here. I'm like
that's the only way you gonna get there. Like, nah,
please. And it's crazy because, you know, as a black woman, like, you tell somebody no, sometimes they be ready for you to throw blows, but I say no with a smile. I'll be like, no, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah. So I told him no, and he was like, okay. And I asked him if there's a job opening in Chicago, because I was closer to home. My baby was turning 5. I wanted her to go to school. They was like, no. And so because of that, they blocked me. I ended up just coming home. I got more experience, but the more experience I got, I finally eventually got to my continuous improvement manager role here in Michigan for a plastics company. Excelled. Like, I loved it. I built the program from the ground up. Didn't know what I was doing. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. But I taught myself, and I learned. I took all my previous experiences and I built their program from the ground up. And I just got a passion for, like, coaching people through that process. And so I always know when it's time to switch jobs and switch roles, when I feel like I'm stuck. Like, anytime I feel stuck, I'm like, okay, it's time. Like, it's time to move your feet, Patrice. Yeah. So I got an opportunity to interview for the other program, and it would allow me to travel around, and I could touch a wide variety of different businesses. Wow. And so I was like, and then they were like, you know, you could make this amount of money. What salary are you looking for? And I'm like, they were like, how does a $140,000 sound a year? And I'm like, that sounds pretty cool.
What?
Hey. I was like, oh, that sounds good.
So listen,
at the time I was only making 80.
when we cut these cameras, I'm gonna ask Patrice for a loan, because I know she got it. But,
So I was like, what? Like, I'm like, this is what consultants make? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Wow. And so I interviewed for that job, and I didn't get it. And I was like, crap, guy, like, I didn't get the job.
But at least that kind of, you know, from that point, you know, it probably helped you to define what you did want, right?
Yeah,
because it's like, wait, I can make this. Now I can't go back from that. Somebody told me that this is possible, and it helps you make those goals more specific. I got you.
That's exactly what happened. Because then I was like, okay, so maybe I'm not done doing what I'm supposed to do with this job yet. So I went hard the next 3 months at the job that I had, because I'm like, it's obviously something God wants me to learn. And so sometimes you got delays, but that delays is just pruning out of you the things the skills that you need, more of the stuff that he needs for you to have before you go to the next step. Yeah. And so then at the end of the year I made a goal. I was like, you know what? I want to have a house by this time. I want to quit my job by this time, and I want to make this amount of money by the end of the year.
Specific goals.
I was very specific. Yeah. I got my house by October 2020, the time that I set for myself. Yeah. I quit my job at the time that I said I was going to quit, and I had confirmed a new job even before that. So I had quit my job exactly on December 31st of that year. And I got the job that I have now, where I'm traveling around to different businesses. But I have a passion for coaching people, right? Fitness coaching, business coaching, financial coaching.
And you be doing this on a roll. Every time it's like a different hotel room. Oh. She be doing this. That didn't come out right. I'm talking about she's working. You get my point.
You messing it up.
No, but you working, you know, Idaho, you going from state to state.
I'm going from state to state.
You're doing these things still while you're traveling, and you're staying in hotels, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I do that. I teach fitness classes virtually. Online while out of my hotel room. When I teach like Zumba. I'm coaching people through their
Bridget said she joined in the Zumba class too. So
Bridget like, what?
Yeah, that's what she said. That's what she said. She said she gonna join it.
Come through, Bridget, next Saturday. No, yeah. So I get an idle mind, right, is a devil's playground. My mom used to tell me that when I was younger. Facts. And so, like, anytime I'm idle, like, I when I'm on the road, it's like, once you're done with work, what you doing, sis? Yeah. Like, what you doing?
Because there ain't nothing but trouble out there. Exactly.
Who can you help? Yep. Like, it's always like, who can I help? And what you go through is never for you. So it's like, every time I go through something, I'm like, oh, man, this is about to be a testimony.
Somebody else might need to hear this, and it could help somebody else.
And so like that has helped me. And then like I coach athletes, like I coach cheerleaders,
of course,
right? But I coach them in tumbling, so I had to stop cheer coaching because I got a job on the road, and so I coach them in tumbling through their mental blocks. And they have a lot of them have mental blocks. These little kids. Jesus, like they be having there's a lot of stuff that
more so
them.
now than when you were growing up, I would say, right? Yes. It's a lot more distractions out here.
So many more.
And people are much more critical because of social media,
and
right?
Self-comparison. Like they always comparing themselves. It's like, you're unique in your own way. You're beautiful. You're awesome. Why are you even thinking that? That hasn't even happened. Yeah. Like they literally go to the worst right away. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute. How do we jump off the cliff and we haven't even started our life yet? Like, wait a minute. Like, go back. Like, what are you doing? Like, come back.
Yeah, you're going too far. Just stay right here. Yeah.
So, I coach athletes through those experiences, and I get to coach them and teach them new skills. So, when I tell you my life, I'm like a life coach. I feel like I will be eventually a life coach, but like, my life is coaching others, and I influence people to do things that they may not want to do at the time. But they'll love it at the end, and they'll love me for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They do end up loving me, but they hate me.
But that's the thing. It's tough love, right? And you need people that's going to be honest with you and hold you accountable, and do it with a sense of compassion. You know, not where they're just trying to put you down because they don't like. It's different when somebody holds you accountable who actually believes in your potential versus somebody who doesn't.
Absolutely, and you can feel it.
You can feel it.
You be like, oh, this person.
So the reason why, again, one of the things about me is that I had reached a point where I wasn't being as specific with my goals because I had accomplished, more than I could ever imagine. And sometimes, you don't want to be specific because if you are and you aim at a specific target, now you can actually fail. And that's why sometimes even when I would embark on some journey or create some content, people ask, well, what's your goal? And I'd be like, hey man, if people watch it, that's good enough. But it was only because I didn't want to be disappointed if they didn't watch it. So I should have made those goals more specific by saying, hey, I want 50,000 views. I want this. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And watching your stuff reminded me of reasons why I needed to stop letting fear get in my way of being specific. Again, there's this book, I think The Alchemist. I'm sure you read it. Right. It's by, I'm about to butcher this guy's name. It's by Paulo Coelho. Right. It was published in 1988. And since then, I think it sold over 150 million copies worldwide. It's on a list of the top 10 most read books. I think the Holy Bible, the Holy Quran, Lord of the Rings. All of these, it's on.
I'll pass on Lord of the Rings.
I'll pass on it too. But it's
every day.
It's on the list with these books. And in there, he talks about like when you're a child, you have this, you have this imaginative. You have such a vast imagination, right? You're not even aware of the parameters or the boundaries that exist in the world.
There aren't any, right?
They're not. And not just parameters with respect to, humans can't fly, but like when you get older, people will oftentimes tell you that you can't do something because either they can't do it, maybe they fell short of their goals, or they just don't have the imagination or the vision that you have, right? Yeah. But anyway, as you get older and become an adult, that voice is still inside of you. That child version of you is still speaking to you.
It's true.
And sometimes people will either mute that voice, they'll lower it, you know what I'm saying? Because that voice is almost afraid of breaking your heart because it's reminding you of all of the goals that you didn't accomplish. Yeah. Now that you've become more integrated into society, you have the career, you have the kids, and then you look up and you say, there's no way I can go after these things now, right? But the crazy thing is that we have to make sure that voice stays amplified. That child that speaks in us, we have to, because, we don't want to necessarily delay the suffering. We think that we're avoiding the suffering, but it's not. It's not. We're delaying it, and it becomes bigger, and then it permeates into other parts of our lives. That's true. Now we start letting fear get in the way of us falling in love. Fear getting in the way of us applying for this job because we don't want to, not get the call. We don't want to risk not getting the call back or whatever, and risk how we'll feel. So I say all that to say, the thing that's on the other side of fear is worth the suffering that one will endure in pursuit of that thing. And that's what your post, that's what your brand, it reminds me of. It reminds me of not necessarily allowing the fear to get in the way and understanding that who you become in the process is much more important. That's why you hear, and I'm being long-winded, that's why you hear parents, right, who have lost children for reasons that are beyond their control. When you ask them and say, hey, well, do you regret having a child? You know, because if you would have never had that child, you wouldn't feel this pain, this void that'll be with you for the rest of your lives. And they say, absolutely not, because I had a chance to experience a love like no other with that child. And that in itself is worth the pain that they're going to have to feel for the rest of their lives. So anyway, that's why I appreciate you. That's why I respect you. And you reminded me of that. Paulo Coelho is what I think about when I watch your stuff.
That's so funny. That's so funny because, so the Bible says, right, it talks about like, if you suffer with God, you'll reign with him. And just as Christ suffered in the flesh, like we're called to suffer too. And a lot of us want to avoid that.
Why do we
and it's like we want to be like, we want to run from the suffering because we feel like, and honestly, culture makes it so that I don't like it, I can just leave it. And sometimes you can, right? And sometimes it's encouraged. But like there's certain things you got to suffer through. And like once you, so my ex-husband, he used to say, you know, you got to get through the suck. Like once you get through the suck, on the other side of the suck is the greatness, right? And I'm like, yeah, you got to work out once you work it all out, like God is going to allow that suffering, but you learn how to get through it. You build this person on the other side of that. And it's like, yeah, I suffered some things that may not be suffering to others, right? But for me and my mindset and the state of mind I was in those times, I felt like I was suffering, right? But in that suffering, it built me and then created me into the person that I am.
Man.
And I still haven't arrived.
And
right?
that might have been more important. Who you became might have been more important than the actual target. Sometimes you like, wait, the target? I thought this was the thing that was going to make me, that was going to solve all my problems. But it's not. It's who you become in the process.
It's not. And so if there's anything, it's like it's like the suffering's going to come, but how you handle the suffering, how you go through it, how God uses it to prune out those things that aren't of him in order to replace it for those things that are of him, that it will allow you to open the doors and open your eyes to all the stuff that he has purpose for you. But God don't show you everything all at once.
No, he just
like he give you a little glimpse. Like he be like, this gonna happen.
Well, just like he did when you the $140,000. That was like a little peekaboo.
Yeah, it was like that.
But you got more work to do before you get there.
Yeah. And the thing is that it was because it wasn't until like 6 or 7 months down the road, and even in my first year doing this job, I didn't make that amount of money because of the pandemic, right? So I wasn't able to make that full amount of money. And I started out this year, and financially I had struggled a little bit. Like I was like looking up and I'm like, dang, my bank account on E again. Like, this ain't it. Like, dang, my credit score looking kind of shady. Like, this ain't it. Like, you go through those moments, but at those moments were the times that I knew I needed to do something different. Like I knew that I'm going through this suffering and this is trash, but what do I need to learn like in this process? And so that's how I learned how to fix. That's how I learned how to fix my credit. That's how I learned.
So why wouldn't somebody want to come to you for these things? Because you actually, it's not like you just telling people what they should do and you never experienced it. You overcame these things. You're still overcoming these things. And it's like, that's what makes you a great coach, a relatable coach.
Yeah. But you go through those things in order for you to teach other people. But the suffering really, like people be avoiding it like the plague. It's like, oh, no. Yeah. It's like, you're going to keep doing that.
You got to face it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the videos, how many times I said, like, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do these videos. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. Nobody's going to look at my videos. And I'll be like, or like, these are our self-thoughts, right? This is like real thoughts that go through our head. Like, oh, ain't nobody going to look at those videos. Or, oh man, my hair is like messed up. Or I'm sweating.
All these reasons to not do it.
All the reasons to not. And it's like, at some point, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You do it. You improve. You do it, improve.
Just like Peyton told you on that one video, she said, hey, get on live now, mommy. So anyway, when y'all go to her page, but listen, Patrice, man, we got to have you back over. I just feel like there's so much more of your story that has to be told. I'm so incredibly thankful that you shared your story or part of it. This is only a piece of it. With us. Where do people find you on social media? You can find me at Fit2Fierce, the number 2, Fierce. On Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Patrice D Johnson. And then you can also find me on Snapchat and Twitter at Fit2Fierce. Dope. Any last words you would want to leave the audience? To leave the audience,
So God puts a special gift inside of all of us, right? The only way we can fulfill that special gift is not only to just go through the suffering, but to learn through the suffering, right? So take every advantage you have as you're going throughout life. Look for the opportunities that God is placing in front of you to learn, to grow, and to be the best version of yourself. Mic drop. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, y'all. Man, this is. I don't even
There
know
you
what to
go.
say after
Go.
that. Yeah, I mean, this is.
I appreciate you for having me. This is my first time ever doing something like this, and I really do appreciate
I
it.
can't tell.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell. This is Patrice Johnson. I thank you for blessing us, for being a vessel for God to speak life into us right now. And I look forward to the next time you come on here. This is Conversations with TinBridge, everybody. Peace.
Peace.